Welcome to the Kreppen Zoom webinar. Kreppen is an organization, commercial real estate professionals network based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we focus on a range of expertise in the real estate area, from construction to marketing to leasing, everything about commercial real estate. And today I'm going to host a webinar with three very interesting companies. And we're focusing on using virtual reality or virtual tours and 360 views in the commercial real estate world that really hasn't been adopted that much and is just now beginning to take off. And given our COVID-19 problem and not being able to see spaces, this is really sort of the beginning of maybe a new era. And our three panelists will discuss from their perspective, their companies and their use, the kinds of things that you can be doing in this area. And the three panelists I have are Emily Ullman of Hopscotch Interactive, which she basically will talk to you about doing 3D walkthroughs of properties and in her technology and what she does. And then we have Michael Hoppy of GeoPogo, which creates realistic renderings of physical office space and that can be altered and designed in different ways. And they're kind of going through a refocus that he'll talk about. And lastly, to get a perspective in the commercial real estate market, we have Anthony Schell of Avision Young, and he has been an early adopter. So I will kick this off. Now I'm hearing from some people they cannot get on. I do not know why. I'm not sure if they can't get on or, okay, I will turn this over to Emily and allow you to do your presentation. That'd be great.
Fabulous. Thank you for the introduction. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I am going to share my keynote with everybody, and then you should be able to see my screen. Oops, just a second. Let's go back to the beginning here. Wait, let me just stop for 1 second. Sorry. Let's see. Here we go. All right, we're back. Now you guys can see my screen and you can see me as well?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So hi everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to speak today with the Kreppen Group and with my colleagues. I'm really excited to share with you a little bit about myself and a little bit about Hopscotch Interactive and sort of a 3D philosophy for capturing spaces and sharing them virtually, and some of the learnings that I've had over doing this for this past several years. So the work I have done in with Hopscotch Interactive, I started it in 2015. It was initially a company to bring extraordinary spaces to the world using 3D photography. So I was a very early adopter of Matterport technology, which is a 3D camera and scanning system. And so I started using that in early 2015. I was fascinated by the technology and felt like it was something that could take me anywhere. And I loved that I could create 3D models. My father's an architect and a builder, and so I think it just really spoke to me to be able to create these incredibly high quality and realistic models. And from there, the company really expanded and grew into offering all sorts of other services for 3D marketing. And so we operate in the San Francisco Bay Area. We also have a global network of 360 photographers. I speak regularly on 3D, VR for real estate, et cetera. And I'm also, for instance, planning part of the immersive content for RealCom 2020. So I really evangelize this technology because I believe in it so much. not just Matterport, but everything. And I joined Crepin last year because I felt like it was an amazing organization for me to connect with other real estate professionals that had a wide variety of backgrounds related to CRE. And I saw that CRE was starting to adopt more immersive technology, and I was excited about that and really wanted to bring my expertise to that group. And these are some of the organizations that I'm affiliated with as well. So just wanted to share a little bit about our background. So, you know, going back, it was like, that was then, you know, this is the past. And this is me sort of training people and up close with folks at the Academy of Art in San Francisco early on in my days doing this work, you know, showing people and telling them all about 3D. And, you know, fast forward to now, and here we are, you know, at work in a commercial office building in San Francisco. We're wearing our PPE, masks, gloves, and we've been sort of deemed essential workers. Folks that make real estate virtual tours, photography, anything that facilitates a transaction for CRE, for residential is essential. So it's been a very interesting few months for us. But I want to kind of also go back and preface this with the way that it was seen a couple years ago. So in 2018, you know, Build Out did this marketers survey, and I've circled down at the bottom here that virtual reality and 3D tours were sort of, you know, they were less than 15% of the tech tools that were being used for commercial real estate. And if you looked at overall what they were planning on doing in 2019, it was still under 30% of anybody really reaching towards these immersive tools, because maybe they thought cost was a barrier, maybe it was new to them, they didn't know how to use it, or maybe the offerings for CRE just hadn't quite found that product market fit. And I really think that that's what's happened, and I'll get into that in a second. But obviously we all know what's happened this year, and you know, it's 2020, and so I ran a little poll on LinkedIn about a month ago. And the question was, were virtual tours for real estate already essential to your marketing strategy prior to COVID-19? And the results were really different. So 18%, which I think reflects the number of people that we saw in the previous statistics, said, yeah, it had already been essential. I'd already really adopted that. 9% says, no, they were not essential. But now 73% are saying they are now essential. So this is happening for a number of reasons, but I really know that for everybody in CRE, you know, sheltering in place has meant not being able to show and not being able to go on leasing tours. So it's been something that has, you know, been a speed bump and an obstacle for a lot of folks that don't have this in place or don't have methods for creating virtual tours. So, you know, I started the business really by doing a lot of residential work and sort of tackling any kind of space. And through that, I discovered what I call my 3D philosophy. And my 3D philosophy is that it's one part documentation and that it's one part storytelling. So, you know, if we look at residential, you know, it's really great to show your beautiful images of the property and just the glorious beauty of properties. This is a property that I shot in Mill Valley, and we did a twilight shoot, and it was, you know, it's spectacular. And I do believe you still need that. But where the virtual tours come in is where, you know, in a slight change of the way that people think about, you know, marketing properties, it's really about documentation of the entire space, you know, sort of like, I always think of retail spaces, because there's inevitably going to be the kind of the fry cooker area, right? Where it's like, it's just that corner of the building is just always going to look pretty, you know, pretty stale when you're touring that space, you know, and so it's not staged. It's not going to show as beautifully. But the philosophy that I came up with was really that if we document a space in 3D, whether it's Matterport or another type of reality capture, meaning a 360 photography or you know, using photos to recreate a scene. I do believe that virtual touring and all of this documentation is really best enabled by really having an inventory of the entire property. And that means, you know, entrance to the building, exit to the building. That means common amenity spaces. That means the suite, of course. But it really involves creating sort of a master documentation for the building that you can then reference and go back to when you need to recreate or when you need to create new marketing content, for instance, for a sublease during the pandemic and during shelter in place. So I really don't think that it's just about the pretty pictures. I think that the best kinds of virtual tours serve a couple of different purposes, and that they can showcase the property for its, you know, its potential, but that they can also show you exactly what it's like to be on the ground there as close as you can be without being there yourself. And these things will enable you to build upon them. So let's just look at a couple of cases. This is a property in Emeryville. It's the Towers. That is Cushman & Wakefield represents this property. And I scanned this one in 2017, April 2017. And so what's nice about it is that this one, you know, we have all of the documentation of the entire conference center. We can showcase, we scanned, you know, multiple suites in this entire complex. And so this was something that enabled that client throughout the shelter in place to really reference material that we already had, and they could take a real immersive virtual tour. This is a Matterport tour, for instance. But it was a tool that they had that they could reach to in their archives, and they could use it when they really most needed it. And I think that that's the key difference now, is that, you know, virtual tours were sort of seen as a nice to have or as an optional piece of marketing content. But now I really can tell you that it's essential, because it's now this way to bring somebody into a space remotely when you can't go there yourself.
Emily, I have a quick question. Can you explain a little bit about how Matterport works, or if you're going to show that, that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. And but in any case, what I wanted to illustrate was that you know, we were able to go back in June, because we'd already created a master documentation for the property. We could go back and then create a new scan or a new virtual tour for a new suite in the building, but use the content that we had from before in order to create that that virtual tour. So I'm going to go through these. This is 1999. Harrison and Anthony's on the call. He represents this building in Oakland, and so I wanted to show you guys, for instance, Suite 2500. Maybe Anthony, do you want to just sort of talk over what, or jump in and maybe just mention a little bit about this model while I pull it up?
Yeah, happy to. So, hi everyone. My name is Anthony Schell. I'm a principal with Avis & Young in the Bay Area. We are a full-service brokerage firm and the fastest growing commercial real estate firm in the world. So very excited to be part of a fast growth technology platform-based brokerage. One of the benefits of being with Avis & Young is that our team was allowed to use a little bit out-of-the-box thinking with regards to our marketing of our properties. We needed to punch above our weight class, so to speak, and competing with the, you know, household name brokerage firms. And one of those things we did was related to our marketing of our properties. We began shooting our buildings professionally way back in 2014, which even to this day, it surprises me that some brokers still utilize their iPhones to take photos of their spaces. These buildings are gorgeous, and these office spaces are brilliant visually. So the ability to show them off, I feel like, is our bread and butter as brokers, especially as listing brokers. When I met Emily and Hopscotch Interactive and learned more about Matterport Video, it was in 2015, 2016, and I immediately saw the need to begin marketing in a much more immersive, three-dimensional aspect way to my clients. Not only was it useful during the initial garnering of interest from tenants and getting them to see the space from their desk or from their home and then wanting to tour, but it also showed great value later on in the process when you were space planning with a tenant to determine the layout of a space, or you were going in to look at some engineering items that needed to be added. To be able to have a three-dimensional video of the as-built condition of the space was amazing. One of the great parts about the 1999 shoot that Emily is now showing is that we were able to showcase what is referred to a shell floor, so a space that is completely demoed out down to just the heating and cooling systems, essentially, and really showcase the space, in my humble opinion, as in its most beautiful format, which is completely wide open, no questionable design aesthetics included, no parts about the space that you would do differently, just a blank slate. This space sits on the 25th floor of 1999 Harrison, which is a 600,000 square foot kind of round Class A tower on the shores of Lake Merritt. Very easy to identify if you've ever been in that area. And we marketed this globally and locally, which is the way we do things on my team. And we're able to find a growing engineering firm that wanted to consolidate its San Francisco, Walnut Creek, and Oakland offices into one. And we're able to lease this space in less than 3 months on the market, which for a space that's 25,000 square feet in a Class A building that is definitely at the top of the market in terms of rents, was a big success story for us. And what we learned later was one of the reasons that this Matterport technology was so useful to us in marketing and eventually securing that engineering tenant was that they were able to showcase the space to not only the local groups that were not able to come on the tours, the offices in Walnut Creek and San Francisco that would be relocating here. We were also able to get buy-in from their management team out of Chicago in looking at this space and really being able to get excited about it. So I think for me, I have always been an early adopter of technology and commercial real estate, and the visual aspect of real estate in general, the tangibility, the ability to see it and feel it, is such a critical part and such a lost art, I believe, in my business. And so partnering with Hopscotch and Emily and bringing this level of immersive Matterport 360 video to our properties seemed like a natural progression for us. So we do this for all of our properties now going forward.
Thanks, Anthony. Is everybody able to see the screen now too?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Forgive
Fantastic.
us for the ratty looking HVAC, by the way. It's the only part that I don't like about this.
Right. And so what Anthony's talking about is that, for instance, if you want to kind of give a client an example or explain to them what's it going to feel like to have, my team and do space planning, for instance, in a building like this, which does have this, rounded side, this rounded sort of, area on this part of the floor, I really think that having that fully immersive tour is so much, it just gives you so much more information than you get looking at a 2D floor plan.
Yep. And I think even to that point, Emily, in looking at the down version, the viewpoint that you just had it on, as we move into the new normal in a post-COVID office world, and groups begin to start thinking about returning to the office, seeing it virtually, being able to spin it around like you do and see it three-dimensionally I have found is hugely valuable, not only to my landlord clients as they begin to start thinking about reopening their office buildings and how can they provide tenants with a path of travel or a social distance, but also to help tenants feel comfortable. And as we enter this new world of COVID, the relationship between tenant and landlord is much, much closer. It really feels like these two groups are working together. So the ability to show them this three-dimensionally has been a big help to us.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Anthony, and for jumping in to keep the ball rolling here. So I really appreciate that. So I'm just going to switch back over to the slides just for a minute. Can you guys see my slides now? Okay. This was another one that I wanted to show you guys as an example just of other kinds of tours that are relevant. Can you see this now? It's opened up into another virtual tour.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is Morton Commerce Center. It is in Newark, and this is one of 4 large industrial spaces that I did a tour for. When I'm approaching the virtual tours for commercial real estate, really that could mean a lot of different kinds of property. That could mean commercial office, that could mean industrial, that could mean multifamily. It kind of has a big range. So I don't think that Matterport is one size. It's not like Matterport is the one and only, and it's not like there's a one size fits all. I think that one of the trends that I'm noticing is that, you know, people are realizing that there's quite a lot of different platforms and software out there. But like I mentioned before, the point is if we document it and we get 360 or 3D, we can then repurpose that, use that, tell that story in different ways. So what I like about, for instance, this tour is that we've, and I'll just spend a second in here, but you can look, for instance, at, here is an aerial shot of the exterior of the building that we've embedded into this 360 image. We have the ability to jump outside. So now we're outside the building, and we can go back into it. But if we wanted to, for instance, like really illustrate and annotate, what is that ceiling, what's the clearance height,
Right.
what's the column spacing? Well, we've added in, some interactive elements here that can sort of illustrate that and really bring that to light for people, and pointing out all of the different aspects of the property. And, we're covering, I believe this one is, if I go back, this one is 161,000 square feet. So it would not be efficient to do a Matterport scan for 160,000 square feet because, it's just a really large open space, and that's not the best kind of space for a Matterport camera, just based on the technology. So I think that it's really important to be able to approach a problem, approach a building, and to say, okay, we need a virtual tour, but what are we going to do to be able to kind of adapt our marketing to that space, and to do it in a way that really makes sense. So, anyway, so I wanted to share that example with you guys. Let's see if I can go back to the
Go ahead. I have a question. Who's the broker representing this?
That's John McManus at Cushman & Wakefield.
I see. So what has he said about it so far? I mean, like, is it allowed him to do things he couldn't do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in many ways, what it has done is it also was something that we started before construction was finished. So we had a multi-phase approach to that. So what's nice is that with that tour, for example, we shot the whole interior first on one of the buildings before the exterior was finished. And then we came back out and we shot the exteriors, and we were able to just kind of add them in and swap them out. And then we did a drone video shoots for all the buildings, incorporated that into the tour. And, I think that people want interactivity. I think that what's nice about a tour like that is that you can tell any story you want. You can click on things, you can bring up hypotheticals, you can bring up renderings. So all of the stuff that you already invested in can be told. You can tell the story in an interactive way, and you let people explore that on their own. So yeah, no, he loves it. So he booked it for, for one of the buildings in that complex in Newark. And also remember, Oakland and Newark are quite a drive. It's quite a drive. So, we want to minimize as much, not just for the carbon footprint, but we want to minimize, people having to go on site and take tours. Initially, we want to really make sure that those are our qualified best leads right now who are going to meet us on site. So yeah, no, it's been really amazing for them. And some trends that I wanted to just comment on. I think that you're going to see more of this because virtual tours have become the new normal. I do think that you'll see, like, for instance, VTS just announced something that they've been working on for a year. It's the VTS Market, which is going to have, they'll have some virtual tours. I don't think they're using Matterport, but they're going to have some video. They're going to have other, photographs being done of properties. And so I think that need for not just LoopNet, not just CoStar, but other alternatives is I think very apparent now more than ever. Truss is not in San Francisco, but they're also very much in this marketplace business. And I think this sort of dovetails into what Mike's going to talk about, but virtual staging, workplace re-envisioning, and then the digital twin, which we'll save that for my next talk with you guys. But, really having the documentation of a property that you can then either operate remotely or access or view remotely or tour remotely, that's going to be a huge trend over the next few years.
Great, great.
Yeah. So there's just a couple of best practices to wrap up here. Companies that can, things to tips and best practices when you are booking or when you're looking at virtual tours. And if it's new to you, I highly recommend, you think about what you need for commercial real estate. Not every photographer can issue a COI. You got to ask about their insurance coverage. We need to have COVID-19 policies and guidelines in place. It's not just the locations themselves, but the companies and the vendors need those. I think having a range of services at different price points, knowing what kinds of cameras they're using, and then ultimately, are you going to be comfortable with the content and the deployment? Are you going to feel like you can use it easily? And that's even perhaps the most important thing, because you're the one that's going to use this as a tool to support your job. And then I think also, and we work very closely with our clients around this, but communicating with tenants about what's going to happen in their space, if it's a sublease, for instance, I think it's really great to just have open communication so people know what the expectations are. So that's it. So here's a QR code. If you guys want to scan it, you can shoot me an email, and it's a good way to reach me. And then I'll turn it over to Michael.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Emily. And great presentation.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes. Okay, so I will share my screen. There we go.
Mike, you have a little bit of light on your face, a little glowing light. You might want to.
Let me, here, give me 1 second.
Okay.
There's some settings here in Zoom that lets us, okay, I'm gonna just, okay. It is my, my living room here. Give me 1 second. Just for you guys, I'll close that window. And let me know if you can see my screen as well.
It is visible.
Okay, that should be much clearer. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and just confirm that that is viewable to everybody.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so again, Emily, great presentation. And my name's Michael Hoppy. I'm the creative director here at GeoPogo. And GeoPogo is an augmented reality design company. And so we've created a suite of software solutions for architects, builders, and commercial real estate agents to sell their projects. GeoPogo primarily is a desktop application which lets you import the architect's models, in which case you can then export those models to our app so you can go and actually view the projects on site before they're built. So architects and builders are using our tools right now to sell their visions and design presentations. And commercial real estate agents can do the same when they're selling land that has a particular building or design concept associated with it. So I'm going to move over to our COVID services. And so what we recently started doing is we've been offering our services to commercial tenants to use our platform to start to re-lay out their spaces. So GeoPogo is a 3D platform, and what we can do that's quite extraordinary is we can take the scans that Emily and Hopscotch do, and we can bring them into our platform. So we can see here on the GeoPogo platform, you can simply send us a scan, or you can send us pictures, measurements, and any 2D floor plans you have. We've been preparing layouts for office tenants. So we've modeled everything and we've laid out furniture that is COVID compliant. And then those tenants can actually use GeoPogo to go ahead and review those layouts. So I'll keep this presentation very short, but we're just going to jump right into the program. So here is a model that was sent to me by Emily. And so this is a full Matterport scan. And what's very remarkable is that we can bring it into the GeoPogo platform and we can actually do space layouts in here. So we can go ahead and we can start moving furniture around. the space is completely empty, like this building was, we can actually go through with our tenants. Oh, give me 1 second. And we can start to do layouts and office design all in 3D. So this gives another use for the Matterport scans that we did not have available before. And this has just been phenomenal. So I'd be very excited, Emily, to test even more projects with you. And what's really exciting is that furniture manufacturers are all modeling their furniture now. So everything is in 3D, and we can bring that into the GeoPogo platform so that we can actually start doing space planning.
So, yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. What format do they model the furniture in and that you import?
Yes, so they model SketchUp, Revit, and sometimes it's an OBJ or a .dai file. And so what we do as a service is we also convert everything so it's all available on the GeoPogo platform. So this is fantastic. Another benefit of the platform is that we have all real-time lighting as well. So you can go ahead and you can use our library of all different lights, and you can go ahead and actually really start bringing the space to life. We have a first-person camera, which is really nice. So just like the Matterport camera, when you're viewing those screens, you get this nice and smooth walkable tour. So you're not jumping in any particular areas, and you can go in and you can inspect very fine details. This is something people have wanted to do with the Matterport files for a very, very long time. And we finally have this. And what we're learning from Matterport is they're getting better and better at churning their 3D OBJ models into these tourable, fully complete models. I'm very impressed with what Matterport and their exports have been able to do. Now, another really awesome feature of the GeoPogo platform is that it's available on an open network. So what that means is that I can go online and anybody else that has GeoPogo installed can join my session, and we can actually go through and tour the space together. And we're represented by an avatar, and that is very powerful for doing a full site tour when we all have to shelter in place. So we can still perform tours and talk to each other as if we are actually there. So I'm very excited to see some of Emily's other projects and how that can work for commercial real estate agents to not only get these models, but furnish them to show the potential of the space to the tenants, and then give the tenants the full tours.
So Mike, in a way, what you can do is a Zoom call with a GeoPogo scan and have your client on there, the architect, everyone discussing what's being shown.
Exactly.
And this is hosted in a cloud environment as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. What a change.
It's very, I'm very excited to see, these models performing so well from Matterport. This is a phenomenal business opportunity. And I invite any questions as I'm going through here, and I'll even attempt to design a little bit. I'm not.
Mike, is the integration automated into the GeoPogo system from the Matterport file that is sent to you, or is that done by hand?
Yes. So what Emily did was she sent me, and I'm just going to find it here from Hopscotch. So this is what Emily sent me from Matterport. So ultimately, what you're looking for is this 3D model that they'll send you, and then in GeoPogo, and I'll just do a completely brand new. There we go. Okay, so this is new. And I'll import it. I'm just going to go back to my desktop. So Emily sends me the model, and
this is from your Suite 740 also.
Yeah.
I
noticed that.
Yeah.
And we'll let that load. So it just quickly loads in. So Emily requests the 3D model from Matterport. Matterport sends it to her, and then she can send it to you. And with GeoPogo installed, it'll load in just a second. Okay, here is that model. So everything's clean. I haven't, this is completely fresh. And I can just quickly move it around where I need to. And then there we go.
Wow. So I have a question. I saw something from Dave recently on space planning for a COVID-19 world in office spaces, and there's going to be protocols. Have you been engaging in that right now, and setting up environments in a different way, less density, and you can show this to clients?
Exactly. And so we started working with UC Berkeley and a lot of their faculty to start delving in and seeing how they can redo the space layouts, to effectively give the university an opportunity to open. And, what I'm really excited about is that the Matterport scans provided by Emily, this cuts 90% of the work. You don't need somebody to go on site and hand measure anymore and produce a 3D model. It's all right here at full scale. So this is a game changer. This is really phenomenal.
So then if you come up with some rough plans and the architect gets involved and a space planner, they can then take this back into their SketchUp or and develop detailed planning from there.
That's right. And so it's a great, it's that great entrance point where, Emily's gone in, she's scanned, she has the model, and then, you and your client sit down, do a hypothetical layout, you find out it works, they're all in agreement, and then you just ship it to the architect and they can get right to work producing the working drawings.
So have you had any meetings, say, with the architect, client, and say a contractor all on the call talking about what they can do? You have. So traditionally, and just going back, we've really purposed the GeoPogo platform for this situation. And so what happens on a day-to-day basis is architects and contractors that use our platform for new construction, that's exactly what they do. I see.
And so, just kind of bringing this in, the nuance, we've really discovered that the Matterport models are now stable. Matterport models are ready to go. This is very new. This is fantastic.
So I also invite anybody who has any questions, just send them in on the chat and I will make sure they get asked.
Mike, are there any further questions within GeoPogo you're able to drop in, a cool table with a lamp and a chair on it? Are there plans to be able to take a shell space, for example, in Matterport and add Hardwell offices additionally in the future as a product?
Right. So this is the big question: is you're given one model from Matterport, and what we have to be able to do is you have to be able to play with that model. Right now, we can use the model as a shell and assume you're not going to change anything in the model, and then we can furnish it. In the future, you may look at this and say, okay, let's actually start moving these walls. Let's start just redesigning this whole space on GeoPogo, and that is something we're working towards in the future. To be able to, change this carpet out. Maybe the client says, I want to see this as hardwood. So you'll be able to swap the carpet, put in a hardwood texture, change the wall colors. We're really aiming towards a full interactive design platform that's very easy to use.
That's interesting. Yeah, if we had the ability to do that, I could see how the ability to send that product once finalized between tenant and landlord and designer could go straight to the formal architect for the working drawings.
Yeah.
A bunch of time and cost out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always been, when we talk about our values and that client architect relationship is that transparency and creativity, giving the clients the opportunity to, effectively bring their ideas to life and give that to the architect. Because if the architect sees that, then he knows exactly what to do. And there's no guessing, design revisions or, design options 1, 2, or 3.
What do you think this will do to timeframes in terms of, clients seeing spaces, modeling things, and build out? Both Anthony and Mike, I'd love to hear you talk about that.
So I can
go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'll start. So I've been working, my background is architecture. I've been an architectural designer for 10 years. And so where this really cuts in, because we can scan the spaces and because they're 3D models now, we no longer need to go in and hand measure and then hand model the spaces. So you're cutting weeks of work. It's literally gone. And this is a big goal we've always been looking for in the industry is how do you automate the process of somebody having to go in, hand measure, and then turn that into a 3D model. Well, Matterport has solved that problem.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would even take it a step further. In the life cycle of a lease between a tenant and a landlord in an office environment, there is this awkward unknown related to tenant improvement costs. And so when you go and tour a space and you're like, I love it, I just need to add 2 offices over there and do this. And the landlords, not for any fault of their own, want to see that they're generally getting close to making a deal with someone before they will pay for the architect to space plan those 2 offices and the other changes. And then once that's finalized, in the past it's been done sending PDFs to the tenant. They make handwritten changes. It goes back to the landlord. You can see how this would take on weeks and weeks of delays. And every time the architect, no disrespect to my architect friends who I love dearly, it's a cost to the landlord every time there's a change made or blah, blah, blah. And eventually this tenant figures out what the cost is once the general contractor gets the final plan. It just takes forever to get that cost. And a lot of times it is that slowness that kills deals. And so I could see another gigantic reason why this could be really well adopted, and I'd love to try adopting it on my team, would be for that speed and ease of use, just to kind of get to the point about what the cost is. So another thing that I'd be really excited about this product.
Exactly. Thank you.
So at this stage, we want to transition into you, Anthony, and have you talk a little bit more about this, both as a marketing tool and as a visualization tool. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. One of the issues that I always had with commercial real estate when I started way back in 2006 was, there were commercial real estate in the past, it has been an old school industry. There has not been a lot of disruption, or CRE tech as they refer to it now, until the last 5 years, really. And so it's not surprising that for years the industry had a pace of doing things and a pace of flow. And what I think really happens when you begin to integrate this type of technology is a giant jump forward in a few different areas. One, the speed at which both parties can really become comfortable even getting through the door to come tour. Obviously, the more visualization tools you offer a landlord to show prospective tenants and brokers what the space looks like inside, I think that only helps to bring in additional value and new tours from prospective tenants to your buildings. And one of the things that I've worked with Emily and Hopscotch in doing is we don't just shoot or have Emily shoot the space in question in Matterport. We do the lobby, and we do the exterior of the building. We do the parking garage. We do all the little accoutrements that come along with an office building. And I think highlighting those and almost tying them into you see bullet points on marketing flyers, secured parking garage or building conference room or a great tenant amenity lounge. You might see a 2-dimensional photo of it, but to be able to tour that and walk around that and see if it really makes sense for your company, I think really gets landlords much more value for the capital that they invest in tenant amenities like a new lobby or a new parking garage or what have you. So I think that's the first stage of real estate, is getting someone in the door to come look at it, right? That's one way that I believe that Matterport and products like GeoPogo totally changed the game for us as real estate brokers, is it just helps us, it gives us more dry powder, so to speak, to get groups in the door, to grab their attention, to see the view of Lake Merritt that Emily showed a second ago when we were looking at the 25th floor. Real estate can be emotional, and to get people excited about coming to see a space is the name of the game. So once we've gotten people in the door, people are touring the building in greater numbers, and then how can we get that to the next stage? So in the past, you would take a 2-dimensional floor plan that would just be lines on a sheet of paper, obviously showing you how the space laid out. And there could be numerous inaccuracies in that plan. Oh, wait, that's an old plan. I didn't realize that office is there. And little mistakes or misnomers like that seem like not that big a deal. And it actually turns out to be a big deal. If you have to move offices or make these adjustments in the space because you had an inaccurate floor plan, it can really hurt the flow and the possibility of making a deal. So I think really making sure that you have the accuracy from 1 inch to the other inch of the entire space in a Matterport video gives much greater security to tenants and landlords that we're moving towards a deal, so to speak. And then you talk about space planning, which is that sort of third stage. You've gotten the group in the building. They've now submitted a proposal to the landlord to take, let's say, this space that we're taking a look at right now. Suite 740. And now we have to make some changes to the space. We want to add an office or two. And I think the ability to, especially in the days of COVID, when we may, who knows when we'll be able to sit around a table with your architect and the tenant and discuss space planning, the ability to see an accurate plan, really just will push that forward. And as Mike was mentioning, the ability to have a virtual Zoom-like GeoPogo space planning meeting or what have you while using a Matterport video, I think it really just speaks to the speed that technology can push and disrupt industries forward. I mean, I think that this would, without a doubt, allow us and my team to move much faster to a point where you can ask both parties, to the landlord and to the tenant, we have the crystal clear, transparent economics. You've seen the space and every inch of it. You completely understand the cost of building out the items that you want to build out. One of the, taking a step back to what Emily mentioned when we were looking at a few of the early plans where we could annotate the Matterport videos, the ability to come in and add notes to a plan about showing where we want to add things, or even going as far as like the engineering of a space. If we wanted to add a kitchen and where the existing plumbing drain loop or waste loop out of the building would be incredibly efficient in terms of speeding up getting those costs. So without a doubt, I think every stage of a real estate deal, the world that I live in day in and day out, it just gets you to an agreement between tenant and landlord about leasing office space much quicker. And I think, to be honest with you, this is just the beginning. One of the things that Emily and I have opined about this for years actually is, if you could actually bring in the property management of a large office tower and the engineering related to a large office tower and overlay on top of Matterport where the power lines are, where the drain loops are, where it really you would have a central tool such as a Matterport video that would help landlord, tenant, property manager, engineer, literally every stakeholder in the office world whose life would be made easier by a Matterport video. They could do these things. So to be honest, as I mentioned earlier, commercial real estate is a very slow adopter of technology. I know recently it seemed like everyone's suddenly, going crazy with tech in the commercial real estate world, but I believe that this is just the beginning for Matterport video and products like GeoPogo and how they're utilized in the commercial real estate world.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. And it just brings in, everything's more real time, more in the moment. And it also aggregates, as you mentioned, all the people who are stakeholders, whether they're in a headquarters company in Chicago or local. And that must be the hardest part in your process to do a deal, is to get everyone on the same page.
Definitely, 100%. And, not only that, but what we are seeing now, I recently wrote about this in a article that I published on LinkedIn about what the future of office space looks like pre-vaccine for COVID and post that. And one of the things that we're seeing from a trend standpoint is that it is likely that large employers and large leasers of office space will move more towards this hub and spoke model, where they have a central headquarters and smaller offices, so that everyone in the environment in the company can choose where they work from and is not tied to a desk, so to speak. And I think virtual office audio-visual technology such as Matterport, such as GeoPogo and other products will allow us to get more comfortable with that adoption of that hub and spoke model. So I really see this really just taking off.
Yeah.
Well, that says a lot about decentralized office space throughout regions, from urban to suburban mix. And I do know that, 48% of those surveyed said they would prefer working at home now, a portion of the time. And that fits this model very well.
Yep. Yeah, we've seen the same things. The COVID-19, the quarantine, it definitely was a shock to the office world. But what I've seen in my trends and my data, my research, as well as my company's research, is COVID, the rise of Zoom, the rise of webinars, the rise of working from home occasionally, is we were, as a world, as a nation, in terms of office users, we were already going that direction. Working from home was becoming a little bit more accepted to a certain degree if you wanted to work from home for a day a week or what have you. The use of, video conference, Zoom and whatnot, Dropbox file sharing, all these other things that we had begun to use, I think will just be pushed forward to a much greater degree. I truly believe that the office is here to stay. It will be in a different version than it might have used to have been. But I think it is the companies that get prepared for what that future of the office look like that will be the ones that are most successful.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, for Anthony. So like do you see like Google or Facebook as early adopters in these models? I mean, they're the ones that have the money, the resources, and lots of space needs. How do you see they evolving, and what has changed in terms of incoming clients coming to you, talking to you about what they need?
Yeah, so of course, and not surprisingly, you can expect that the facehold tech names, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, et cetera, those have always been early adopters of technology in various capacities of their business, and their real estate is no different. So we definitely have seen, from what I understand, and my friends and allies and partners in the property management world that manage these campuses for these tech titans, is that they have already shot a lot of their buildings in Matterport. And Emily, I'd love your thoughts on that as well. They have shot this, and I think that they store this in an area so that their facilities management can get access to it. So definitely something that we've seen is that the tech firms have been using it to begin with, and they are really doing the same as well. Really taking it to a different level during COVID and whatnot.
Mike, can you take off your screen sharing so I can get all of you on here? Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
No
Great.
worries.
So yeah, it would be great to hear from all of you commenting on this. Yeah.
Sure. So can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, Anthony. I agree. And I know that a lot of those bigger companies are, they have in-house scanning, or they have large enterprise accounts for being able to document. And again, like, I think that they are using it in that instance for engineering, for building engineering, to keep as an archive of the space. But the trend I'm seeing, because those companies kind of are already serviced by perhaps in-house, providers of that. What I'm seeing is that the calls I'm getting are surprisingly coming from places like Livermore, Pleasanton, Turlock. We're going to do a shootout in Turlock, which is about 2 hours east of here, tomorrow. And so, in Sonoma. I mean, so what I see is that, places that are further out want to have this as well. And it's becoming something that is, because the time that it takes has come down, because our devices are a lot more powerful, and the scanners are a little bit faster, the price has come down. And so it's reached that sort of sweet spot where it's not out of the reach of, a family office or a small LLC or an owner to say, you know what, I really want to have these scans done or this documentation done, because, we can afford it now. I mean, so scanning can start, as little as $250 for small spaces. And of course it's based on size, so it can just range. But I think that now it's really within reach of a lot of people, and not just something, and that's the one thing I want to make sure that people who are listening understand, is that this is not just something that I believe should just be reserved for tech giants. And, we actually dramatically reduced our prices during COVID, because I felt so strongly that we needed to incentivize people to scan the whole place. A lot of times people had come to us, and because our pricing had originally been a little bit more like, higher end, I said, well, I really want people to be incentivized to scan everything. I want them to be incentivized to have a virtual tour of everything. And that has actually worked out really well. I think that's one of the things that's made it more sort of accessible for CRE. And I think, Anthony, the digital twinification, sort of this creation of a document that shows the building throughout the life cycle. That's like what's behind the walls, what's, where a switch is located, what needs to be fixed. There are a lot of companies that are working on amazing visualization tools for, with BIM and all sorts of different kinds of digital twin technologies. And so I think it's similar to kind of where we're at now, where we've a little bit moved to a standard, feeling like it might be Matterport. Obviously different buildings need different solutions, but I think that that's nice. And I think you're going to start to see that with the creation of digital twins for real estate as well. It's a big topic. It's not very well understood. It's a word that's used a lot to mean different things to different people, which is like, that's always a bad thing because, you know, you really want to be able to talk about the same thing as somebody else is talking about. You know, I think give it a couple years and this will be something that's top of mind for everyone.
Yeah,
Especially as building engineers are retiring and we just don't have that knowledge being replaced by folks. We need to really offload information from people's heads and into a digital system of record.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And just in terms of your question, Stephen, about who are, in my opinion, who are the adopters outside of the tech giants,
Yes.
it is shocking to me the speed at which COVID has pushed even the most anti-technology brokers towards virtual tours. It is, I mean, if you are not doing virtual tours now, you are not, I was having this conversation yesterday with a landlord client. I believe that we have just about reached the point where it's the way if you look to buy something on Craigslist and it doesn't have photos, you won't really like look at those, right? I believe it's the same with virtual tours. If I, as a broker, am trying to, if I have a client that needs 3,000 square feet of office space, enough for 12 or 15 people, right? Nothing crazy. And you surveyed the market for how many options you would have, and you'd have 15 or 20 options to choose from. And as a broker, if all of those had virtual tour capabilities, you and your tenant would be able to sit down together and literally tour the spaces virtually and decide very quickly which ones were the most relevant. And I think that will become the market standard going forward. And not just for technology companies, for nonprofits, for social services groups, for every lessee of office space.
Right. That dramatically changes the accessibility to space and seeing what's available too. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's a transparency thing too, I think, Stephen. I mean, you know, like I mentioned before, I think that, you know, we've kind of gone beyond the point where we can sort of say, all right, well, you're for sure going to come tour the space in person first. The first tour is not going to be in person. The first tour is going to be virtual. And so because that is the way that people are going to be viewing spaces, you know, it's so reminiscent of, you know, like Zillow and, you know, all of these other platforms. Like we really see that there's a lot of service in the residential market where, you know, it's very saturated with all of these virtual tours and different kinds of options. CRE is a lot harder. CRE, you know, commercial spaces, to show them well, to show the potential, right? Because there's a lot of times that spaces are in shell condition. And so I think that that's why you're going to see perhaps even the use of like things like what Mike's building with GeoPogo integrate with CRE even perhaps faster. Because we already have the system of using architects and visualizations, but now if you have a massive demand for visualizing what a space is going to look like with space planning post-COVID, there's not enough architects to really, you know, quickly, efficiently, and cheaply get that done. And so that's where I think that you have to use technology because it's gonna expedite it and it's gonna replace some of that labor. Like Mike said, if it's 90% faster, it does 90% of the work to send a scanner out, and you shoot two birds with one stone, or you kill two birds with one thing. You know, it's like the scanning can be used for leasing, it can be used for planning, it can be used for, you know, distance selling. It just enables a lot of things that that are going to help people.
So I don't want to get into too many specifics about this, but can you give a sense of cost relative to what people have been doing, what they expect? And I know commercial real estate is always cost sensitive, you know, but you know, Anthony, you're an early adopter, so you're seeing the benefit. Anyway, if you guys can just comment in some way about this.
Yeah, I wish I could say that as an early adopter that I had benefited from cost, but I think if you were a late adopter, you would have gotten some benefit. It has come down for sure. And Emily and Hopscotch have been wonderful partners, especially during COVID when they dramatically reduced their pricing. So we felt strongly as a team that we needed to provide Matterport video services to all of our clients, tenant, sublease, and listing. and Emily was great in working with to really bring those costs down. But what we are competing against is essentially space planning is somewhere in my experience, and Emily, I'd love your thoughts, and Mike, you as well as an architect. You know, the landlords will give tenants usually 15 cents to 25 cents a square foot to space plan. That's your allowance that you're given from a landlord. So I think in a lot of ways, you know, we would want to be, it's hard to sort of quantify apples to apples. It feels apples to orange a little bit because you know, Matterport is a technology-focused virtual tour platform that includes hosting and what have you. But in my experience, the cost of Matterport is dramatically less than even space planning is. So I've always felt like it was great bang for your buck. The other thing that Matterport does, which is great for us as marketers of office space, as a listing broker, is that we in the past, as part of Matterport videos, if Hopscotch Interactive comes and shoots your space in Matterport, not only do you have a 360 video, a Matterport video, which is great, you also have all the stills. You have like still photography from the shoot, which completely replace the still photographer, in my opinion. So I feel like we've gotten so much bang for your buck out of getting that, and compared to the rest of the costs associated with either going to an architect or going to a photographer, it is less expensive, in my opinion.
Great.
Yeah, the price, you know, prices depend, of course, on how bespoke and how custom whatever the project is. And typically we charge on a price per square foot model. So, you know, our, you know, base price, for instance, is about $250 for, you know, kind of any scan. And then we charge per square foot, and it goes up from there based on, is it a 0 to 2,000 square foot space? Is it 5,000 square feet, 10,000, 25,000?
Right.
And so we really work off of a rate card that makes it very clear what the costs are, so that the price per square foot, you know, can be, you know, very efficient and fit within Anthony's budget, so that he has enough room for the scanning, which then includes the still photography, and because we can extract those images from the model. And then, you know, he'll still have enough budget in order to do the other things he needs to do within that 15 to 25 cents. So, you know, and we know that that's pretty much a standard budget across clients. I will see that there is more budget for, you know, items like drone photography, augmented reality, virtual reality, anything that is, you know, a little bit of a bigger lift on the content creation. You know, those things cost more money, but, you know, I think that, you know, the price, it's so interesting. It's like when you compare it to regular still photography, you're sending out a photographer, you know, many folks are used to sort of like, they call somebody off of Craigslist, they get somebody to come out, shoot photos. It's like, or they take it on their iPhone. I think that that's going to go away. And one of the things that's going to push that is that as vacancy rates go higher, right, as people are moving out of offices, at least in the short term, and we have a big sublease market expansion, I do think that, you know, the competition will get bigger. The competition for spaces is going to increase. And so, you know, everybody's going to want to put their best foot forward. But I do think that it is possible to get really affordable content, or great content made at an affordable price. And that's always what we're trying to do.
Great, great. So any questions anyone has for these guys that we can answer prior to wrapping up?
This is Alan. I had my hand up.
No, I didn't see that, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hi. So if I have a Revit model that has a structural system in it of columns, beams, whatever they are, could I just kind of import that into this thing and show the retrofit system in the building space?
That's right. And I can share my screen one more time.
Yeah, go ahead.
There we go. Okay, so I do have, so I'm going to bring up a Revit model real quick, and that'll load. So this here is an entire building that a building owner commissioned. And so this has been modeled in, and I don't know if you can see can you see the Revit model?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's that Revit model of the building. So, you know, what we're talking about here is thousands of dollars worth of work. between somebody going on site, measuring the entire building, and then a Revit operator, doing everything. And so what GeoPogo's done really well is being able to make that Revit model usable by the building owner. So the building owner will never touch Revit, but he can touch GeoPogo. And so what's even more important is to jump back to Emily and Hopscotch. Had they just simply scanned that building, you're looking at like significant, 90% of the manual labor of measuring is completed, and the 3D model's already produced. You do have to post-process it, but you're looking at substantial time and cost savings. And so like you said, if you do have a Revit model that has the structural information, you can export that model and import that into GeoPogo.
Okay.
Yeah, Alan, I think it's that, it's the file types, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but, as long as GeoPogo gets the file and, exported the way that they need it, they should be able to utilize that 3D content. So it's really like one of these things where we're in this new world where file formats are something everybody's going to become kind of fluent in. And, Matterport creates what's called an OBJ file. It's an object file, 3D file. And so I don't expect any of my clients to really know what the object file is. Anthony knows what it is because he's been using this stuff for a long time. So that's, he's like really got his stuff down on this. But, I do think that once people realize that Matterport and scanning is not just photography, but that it is geometry, they're going to realize that it enables us to expand upon that content in amazing ways. So yeah, Alan, whether you have something that is in a rendering or, you've created it in CAD or in Revit, you should be able to export your 3D content if you can export it into the right file type.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And Alan, if you have a Revit model, I'm happy to work with you in, making that usable.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put my.
Any other questions anyone has? Feel free to jump in. Well, I don't see any other questions. So, okay, well, this has been interesting. I think it's a really good beginning of some new technology that's really coming to market. And I think it'll be worthwhile revisiting this probably in another 6 months or so and see what is really happening in the real estate market as people come back to work, and how as space is being remarketed and reviewed and completely dealt with in different ways. So that'll be interesting. Any final comments from each of you guys? Let's start with you, Anthony.
I'm a huge believer that technology is going to be the future of real estate, commercial real estate included. And I'm super appreciative of the opportunity to come and speak to the Crepin Network. Thank you, Stephen, Emily, and Michael, for your time. I think the future is really bright for technology and office space, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like.
Great. How about you, Emily?
So I thank you so much. Thank you, Stephen and Anthony and Mike. This is, I agree. I echo what everybody said. It is a bright future for all of us. I think that, right now, I have been working with folks who are doing virtual tours for the very first time a lot. So that has been one of the interesting things, is trying to kind of translate what I do into the world that they already know, which is, like it's a big deal sometimes for folks to put a link onto a PDF, right? Even just making a hyperlink on a PDF to then link to other content, whether that's a website or a Matterport tour or one of Mike's models. I think that there is a learning curve. And so I just want to say that, right now, half of my business, at least half right now, is customers who are doing this for the very first time. Yep. And so there are kind of no dumb questions, and it's okay if you don't know everything about virtual tours. And I would just say that, you know, think of me, the Crepen Network, as a resource for folks that have experience, you know, in different facets of the business. Certainly for me, the virtual tours are something that I very much believe in, but I also know that it's intimidating when folks are just doing it for the first time. And so, you know, everybody wants to look good while they're selling. You know, they all want to look good. And so just, you know, what I would say is, you know, reach out to us, or reach out to somebody, you know, reach out to Anthony to, you know, kind of chat more with him about his experience. And I think that we can share those learnings, because it is really going to be something that that is very standard moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, all technology aims to do is just make something better, to make our work faster, and yeah, to basically take what we're trying to sell and do that in a more effective way. So we're excited for the future.
Great.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Mike. That's
Thank you,
great.
guys. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad everyone came. I didn't really introduce myself very fully. I'm Stephen Donaldson, Radiant Brands. We do marketing mostly for multifamily projects in real estate, which includes websites, branding, and then digital ads, as well as marketing. So anyway, thank you very much. Let me just show you the Crepen email here. So if anyone who isn't a Crepen person can, let me share the screen here if I can do it. Here we go. Share screen.
And Crepen has meetings in both San Rafael in the North Bay and in San Francisco. So just in case folks are located in different areas, I wanted to give a shout out.
Yeah, so if you email us at info@crepen.com, we'll get back to you and let you know about further webinars that will be coming up in the commercial real estate world. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Take care.